so we can fit everybody under the overhang. I mean, because we could also take the crowd over there as an option.
But you won't get anything on television.
Well, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
You won't get anything. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's going to have to stand up.
They don't know where he is. They want more time. Hey, it's Nelson. I guess you got me out of London, right? Okay, I'm at Federal Courthouse.
As people come down, you could help to get that order.
Thank you, buddy. Ma'am. Get on the side. Ma'am.
Ok, veo la pesa. Se cayó. Ahí.
Dale, here they come. Dale, they're coming.
That's not a good place to stand.
Dale, they're coming.
Wes, where are you? Right here. Keem, please.
Come on, man.
Keem. Vemos umbrella.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Sandoval Moschenberg with the law firm of Murray Osorio. This afternoon we were back in front of Judge Zinnes on remand from the United States Supreme Court, which last night issued a unanimous 9-0 decision affirming the order of the district judge that they need to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and give him all of the due process that he should have had before he was illegally deported, and that they need to do that as quickly as possible, and that they need to share with the court information about what they're doing. After the Supreme Court issued that order, the district judge issued a further order clarifying her ruling and explaining that the government needs to take all steps reasonable to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States, and that in the meanwhile, it needs to provide the court with information, specifically 3 pieces of information. 1, where is Mr. Abrego Garcia right now? What is his custodial status? 2, what has the government done so far to try to bring him back? There were several days when the court's order was in effect prior to the Supreme Court entering a stay, and now it's been more than 12 hours since the Supreme Court lifted the stay. What has the government done during that time to bring him back? And then 3, what is the government planning to do to carry out the court's order, which is, again, to take all reasonable steps to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States as quickly as possible. The government refused to provide any of those pieces of information that the judge ordered them to provide. Not only the information about what future steps they're planning to take, they even refused to answer the question about what they've done so far, and they even refused to answer the question about where Kilmar Abrego Garcia is today. For the second time in this case, they sent a lawyer into court who had no answers. He explained that his clients, the government, have chosen not to give him any information, not to give him any evidence. And the district judge, appropriately, was not willing to accept their vague and unsubstantiated assertions that, don't worry, Judge, we'll take care of this all in due course. The government attorney did say that they intend to comply with the order and bring him back. That's the bare minimum. They should have done that already. They've had plenty of time between the Supreme Court's order early yesterday evening and now. He should be here in the United States. It's a 5-hour flight.
Yes. Yes.
So the judge ordered that they provide detailed status updates on a daily basis, including as soon as tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. She's going to give our legal team the opportunity to respond to each one of those. We are also, as plaintiff's counsel, we are not going to accept the government's generic and unsubstantiated assertions that they're working on this, that they're considering it, that they're debating it, that they're taking steps. We are also going to be insisting that they provide specific concrete details to the court, as well as specific names of specific individuals who actually know what is going on, instead of declarations or pleadings signed by lawyers who then come into court and say, I actually have no personal knowledge. And then we'll be back in court on Wednesday.
Simon, what power does this judge have if, in fact, she doesn't get satisfactory answers from the government?
The judge has considerable power to enforce her orders.
What can she do?
We are going to trust that after today's very strong words from the judge. The government is going to provide a meaningful and detailed status update tomorrow, Saturday. But if they don't, we'll respond and we'll tell the judge, what relief we think she should order.
Do you believe when they say the U.S. government, you don't need to look at me that way, the U.S. government will comply with the order of the Supreme Court? How do you take that statement?
The judge has, I'm grateful, I shouldn't need to be grateful that they're going to comply with an order of the United States Supreme Court, but we are grateful at the very least that they acknowledge that they're going to comply with the order of the United States Supreme Court. The judge is very appropriately requiring them to provide daily updates about the steps that they're taking in order to do that. And if those updates are either A, not sufficiently detailed, or B, reflect that they're not moving with all due haste, we are going to be back in front of the judge requesting relief.
What did you think of their disagreement with her about what the Supreme Court had actually ordered?
I think the judge sort of appropriately shut that down very quickly by saying that the Supreme Court affirmed her order, asked for clarification on one verb, and she provided that clarification in her subsequent order yesterday evening.
Sir, I'd like to know, how concerned are you that you have not been able to talk to your client, and what relief will you seek if you don't get the answers that you seek?
I can't get into details about what relief we're going to be seeking. It really does depend on what the government comes up with in their next filing. What I can say is that we're not going to be sitting back and sort of waiting to see what they have to say on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. If they don't take this order, if they don't take today's order seriously, we'll respond seriously.
Why not ask for the court to immediately send Mr. Abrego Garcia back? Because this could potentially push things off all the way until next week.
The court already ordered that last night. Last night, the court ordered the government to take all reasonable steps to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia. So I didn't need to come into court today and ask the judge to order again what she already ordered last night. Now the question is, how are we going to know if the government is actually doing that? And that's what the judge put some very, very, very fine point on today.
Simon, you've had cases where you said that ICE has actually gone and bent over backward to bring people back who were deported illegally. How quickly were those cases carried out? Anything close to what's happening here?
Yeah, there's no reason that this case needed to become a national issue. There's no reason that this case needed to go to the United States Supreme Court. And it's been the government that's done that at every step of the way. It's been the government that turned this into a national issue. It was the government who appealed the judge's original, very reasonable and modest order all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And now it's the government who is coming into court saying, yes, Judge, we blew off your first deadline. We haven't yet taken any steps, or we're not prepared to show you what steps we've taken to comply with your order. Wrongful deportations happen from time to time. And when the government realizes that they've done that, they facilitate the return. They have a policy about it. Courts have ordered it all up and down the United States. For years, we provided several examples in our briefing, and the Supreme Court didn't have any issue whatsoever. 9-0 unanimously agreed that the district judge's order that they facilitate his return was absolutely proper, is in effect today, right now. There was one verb that they weren't sure what it meant. They asked her to clarify it, and she did.
To be clear, you have...
The family has requested just an update on how Kimad is doing. They weren't even able to provide that today. Your response to that?
Yeah, that was the most shocking thing of all, that the attorney for the government wasn't even prepared to answer the question, where is Kilmar Abrego today, and what is his custodial status? I was very dismayed and disheartened by the fact that they wouldn't answer such a straightforward question.
And like in your position, is you know nothing about his current state?
No, neither we nor the family have been able to make any contact with him. This is one of the principal human rights violations that occurs in that facility, is that inmates and detainees in that facility are held incommunicado.
Simon, how disappointing is it that the government is pushing back and fighting this effort that you guys are trying to bring him back to the country?
I had really hoped that after a 9-0 loss at the United States Supreme Court, they would essentially say, all right, we get it, and start acting in good faith. I do have hope that now that they've seen that the district judge is not going to be taking this lightly, that they will start acting in good faith, and that we're actually going to see a meaningful status report tomorrow that's going to detail meaningful activity taking place. But of course, if they don't, we'll be prepared to respond.
Attorney, what if President Bukele says that there are charges against him in Salvador? Would that mean that he would need to come back?
I think it's preposterous that there be charges against him in El Salvador. He hasn't been in that country since the age of 16, about a decade ago.
But in your SIR reply, you said that you noted that the Solicitor General was claiming that there may be reasons for El Salvador to hold him.
The Solicitor General, in their last brief to the United States Supreme Court, sort of made a vague, kind of waved their hands at, well, we might have some information that El Salvador might have some reason that they want to hold him. What we responded is, essentially in keeping with what the judge said at the very start of the first hearing in this case last week. She started the first hearing in this case by saying, I'm going to decide this case based on the evidence in the record. And there's no evidence in the record of any criminality, gang ties, any of that stuff. I mean, at this point, I have to assume that if they had any of that evidence, they would have filed it. And that's essentially what the judge said today. Again, she reiterated, I'm going to assume, based on the fact that you haven't filed any evidence, that you have no evidence.
Abogado, en español, ¿qué fue lo que se determinó el día de hoy sin llegar al respecto?
Bueno, el día de hoy, después del fallo de la Corte Suprema ayer, que falló en una decisión unánime, 9-0, que la orden original de la jueza es propia y correcta, de que Estados Unidos, el gobierno estadounidense, tiene que facilitar el regreso de Kilmar Abrego García a Estados Unidos, tomando todos los pasos razonablemente posible, tan pronto que se pueda. Eso fue el fallo de la Corte Suprema anoche. La Corte Suprema, había una palabra que es la palabra efectuar, que la Corte Suprema dijo, bueno, no estamos seguros de qué quiso decir la jueza cuando dijo efectuar, y por lo tanto, esta misma noche, la noche de ayer, la jueza puso una nueva orden explicando que efectuar quiere decir tomar todos los pasos razonables posibles para que Kilmer regrese a los Estados Unidos. Luego la jueza dijo, ok, entonces ustedes también tienen que avisarme 3 cosas. Primero, ¿dónde está Kilmer y bajo cuál custodia? Segundo, ¿qué es lo que se han hecho hasta la fecha? ¿Verdad? Porque han tenido ya una semana. Durante la mitad de esta semana la orden de la jueza estaba en efecto. ¿Qué hicieron ustedes durante este tiempo para efectuar mi orden? Para cumplir, mejor dicho, para cumplir con mi orden. Y tercero, ¿qué es lo que ustedes van a hacer de aquí en adelante para facilitar el regreso de Kilmar Abrego García a los Estados Unidos? La jueza puso una fecha límite que antes de la audiencia de hoy, Estados Unidos, el gobierno tenía que contestar esas 3 preguntas. No lo hicieron. Entonces, la jueza puso una orden. Bueno, primero reafirmó su orden de que Estados Unidos tiene que traerlo de regreso tan pronto posible. Y segundo, ordenó que diariamente, incluso fin de semana, tienen que dar una actualización a la Corte detallada y de una persona que tiene conocimiento personal, no un abogado, sino un oficial del gobierno, tiene que actualizar a la Corte diariamente de qué es lo que se está haciendo. Va a haber otra audiencia el miércoles, pero entre aquí y miércoles, si nosotros no estamos conformes con lo que el gobierno está haciendo o con el nivel de detalle que el gobierno está dando sobre sus acciones, nosotros siempre podemos someter algo por escrito a la Corte.
Abogado, ¿qué opciones tiene la jueza si el gobierno no le da esta información que ella solicitó? ¿Cuáles son las opciones para hacer cumplir esta orden? Y en segundo lugar, si me permite, dada la nueva explicación de la jueza sobre la orden, ¿existe, ustedes reconocen un escenario donde el gobierno cumpla la orden y aún así no regrese su defendido?
La jueza tiene bastante poder para enforzar sus propias órdenes. lo que está haciendo en este momento, y es correcto, es dar al gobierno básicamente una breve oportunidad para cumplir, mejor dicho, por las buenas. Pero no vamos a estar con brazos cruzados entre aquí y el miércoles. Definitivamente vamos a estar contestando diariamente cada actualización del gobierno y dando nuestro punto de vista a la jueza. De ahí, yo no creo que hay nadie en este país que crea que Estados Unidos es impotente para traer a Kilmer de nuevo. Yo creo que todo el mundo sabe que está ahí en El Salvador, que está ahí en esta cárcel en El Salvador, porque Estados Unidos lo puso allá, y que prácticamente sacarlo de ahí, pedir que se lo devuelven a la embajada estadounidense en Santa Tecla para traerlo de nuevo, es algo realmente sencillo. Y si nosotros se lo pedimos al gobierno de El Salvador de buena fe, si nosotros hacemos esta solicitud, pues yo creo que todo este país entiende que el gobierno de El Salvador no tiene razón para no cumplir con esa solicitud.
Well, sir, if the government comes back, I'm so sorry.
Sure.
If the government comes back every day and they have no substantial status updates, what remedy is there to ensure that Mr. Abrego Garcia will be sent back home?
Yeah, I can't get into right now, sort of if-then kind of scenarios about remedies, but, we've been working with the law firm Quinn Emanuel Urquhart Sullivan. They've assigned, I think, more than a dozen attorneys to this case. They've done a fantastic job of briefing this case. The Supreme Court asked us to file a brief on Tuesday at 5. We filed it by Monday at 5. We're going to leave no stone unturned in, asking the judge for the appropriate remedies if the government doesn't comply with her orders.
Pregunta para Jennifer en español por acá, Carolina de Telemundo 44.
Si no quieres
¿Sí
contestar,
sabes pues hablar?
si quieres. Prefiere no hablar. Dice que prefiere no hablar.
Can you repeat what you said about there's three things that they're being asked to do, and every single day the judge is expecting them to do it?
There's one thing that they're being asked to do. The one thing they're being asked to do is to take all reasonable steps to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. In the meanwhile, they're asked to provide three pieces of information. One is, what is the current status of Mr. Abrego Garcia? Where is he and under whose custody? Two, what steps have you taken to date? And then three, essentially, what's the plan? What steps are you going to take going forward? But the thing that the government was asked to do was to bring him back. And that's what they need to really get started on now. No more games.
What's your take on why he's saying this is impractical? It seems like a very straightforward thing. Like, is it just foot dragging, or do you really think that is there some legal argument that they could possibly come up with?
No, I think I don't think there's anyone in this country who believes the government when they say, well, we don't know how to do this. We can't figure out how to get someone out of a Salvadoran jail. They got Kristi Noem out of a Salvadoran jail, right? I mean, they can get Kilmar Abrego Garcia out of that same jail.
Yo solamente le quiero preguntar cuál fue su reacción cuando no supieron contestar dónde se encontraba.
Yo realmente estaba incrédulo cuando el abogado del gobierno dijo que él no pudo contestar la pregunta tan sencilla de dónde está Kilmer y bajo cuál custodia. Eso es increíble que ni siquiera ese dato él pudo dar a la corte. Y lo que demuestra es que realmente el gobierno está jugando con la vida de un ser humano. Lo están tomando como un asunto legal, un asunto político. Eso no es un asunto político, eso es un ser humano. Eso es un caso bastante sencillo, realmente sencillo. O sea, se equivocaron, cometieron un error y ahora hay que rectificar este error y poner las cosas como estaban. El que está complicando todo esto y el que está haciendo un show a nivel nacional, tomando esto a la Corte Suprema, eso ha sido el gobierno desde el principio y ahora ya es hora de que dejen de jugar.
Sé que la familia no quiere hablar, pero usted ha hablado con ellos. ¿Cuál es el sentir de ellos en estos momentos tras estos cambios?
No puedo hablar por ellos. en ese momento.
Abogado, el presidente Trump dijo que en un principio se pensó que Kilman era del Tren de Aragua. Eso lo dijo en la Casa Blanca. ¿Ustedes sabían que al principio lo habían confundido con alguien del Tren de Aragua?
Han dicho un montón de cosas desde la Casa Blanca, en ruedas de prensa, en tweets, pero yo soy un abogado y en este caso en la Corte no han sometido una sola página de evidencia en su contra. All right, thank you.
Sí, sí, sí.
No, I'm not. I'll watch you. Thank you.
Figure that out.